Welcome to the Global Peace Film Festival Lives Online Conversation 2021 Festival Edition. Please join me, Kelly Devine, the Artistic Director, and Nina Streit, the Executive Director, in conversation with Jon Osaki, the filmmaker behind Reparations, a film which you can see as a part of the 2021 Global Peace Film Festival program. In-person screenings begin September 21st and run through the 26th. And then it is followed by a week of streaming access beginning September 27th and ending October 3rd. All of the scheduling information, descriptions, ticketing information, and other events can be found on peacefilmfest.org. And now let's welcome Jon Osaki. We're so glad to have you with us again, Jon.
I'm very happy to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So let's start this by tell us a little bit about the film.
Sure. So Reparations is about the Black reparations movement here in America. It's really told through the lens of the Asian American community. And the reason for that is the Asian American community in this country has gotten a very painful reminder of the presence of systemic racism in this country. And myself, many others in our community understand that in order to make progress in addressing this, that we have to work with other communities. We have to be in allyship. We have to work in solidarity with other communities to address these issues collectively. And reparations was identified as what we hope can be what I call an opportunity for allyship. And my mother and father both received reparations for being incarcerated during World War II as one of the 120 Japanese Americans who were placed in concentration camps by the United States government. So we know a little bit about what it means to seek reparations and how healing it can be. And so this film is really meant to raise awareness that the Black reparations movement is not, it cannot just be that community advocating for itself. It has to be other communities standing up for them. And so that's really the focus of this film.
And Jon, how did you come to approach this material in this particular way as a filmmaker, as much as the sentiment?
Well, so for myself, first of all, I do want to say that I approach this particular topic with a great deal of humility. Obviously, I don't know what it means to be a Black man in America, so I don't want to give the impression that I am any sort of authority. But I have, in my professional career, been extremely fortunate to work with the Black community in creating services for young people in the San Francisco Bay Area, for my organization and the work that we do. It's normal to work together collectively to address issues that are affecting communities of color. But I think as I have been in conversations in different parts of the country, I don't think it's normal. I don't think there are enough opportunities for communities to work together, and specifically to work together on issues that lift each other up. And I think that was really my interest in this film. And I'm hopeful, again, this is really told through the lens of the Asian American community and how we can be hopefully allies to the Black community in this struggle. It's really incredible that this effort started all the way back to the time of the Civil War, and that this is a fight that the Black community has largely fought on their own. There have not been a lot of allies historically in this struggle. When John Conyers first introduced HR 40, back in 1989, he did not have a single co-sponsor. So I'm hopeful that this film can raise awareness of really what this subject is about, that it's not about simply atonement and repair for slavery, which it is, but it's really about the many subsequent actions and continuity of systemic racism in this country that has led to this profound racial wealth gap that is really undeniable. And so that's really my interest in getting into this film. And I was, incredibly grateful that so many were so generous in sharing information with me that made this film possible.
Well, and John, you mentioned, the delicacy, the humility with which you approach allyship, but obviously really encouraging people to take that leap and become an ally. In the course, though, of making the film, were there things that surprised you about the process, or that you learned that you hadn't expected?
There was a lot. I mean, one of the great things about being a filmmaker is I learn so much in the process. And going into this, honestly, I did not know a lot about the Black reparations movement. I thought that it was primarily centered around House Resolution 40, which was first introduced in the 1980s. But I was quickly educated on the fact that the whole reparations effort started really at the end of the Civil War, and that this has been an ongoing process of the Black community trying to seek repair for the horror of slavery, and that over time it's become really about the many, many oppressive policies in this country that have sanctioned really this tremendous racial wealth gap. And I think that in the film, I learned a lot about how in the Black community there have been far less opportunities to build wealth. There have been so many instances where members of the Black community have not been able to be approved for home loans, that there was systemic ways in which they were prevented from obtaining property, from being able to hand down wealth to future generations. And I think it is really when you start to put the pieces together and understand just how many obstacles have been put in place, that for anybody today to claim that there's a level playing field, it's really just not the case. And I think I was surprised by how there's just layer upon layer of issues that have been affecting this community that frankly have not been affecting other communities. For example, the Asian American community, my own community, the Japanese American community, as we started to rebuild our lives, after being released from the concentration camps during World War II, there was, I think, over time, greater acceptance of Asian Americans in society. There was a more willingness to bring them into workplaces. There was more of a willingness to, over time, provide them with home loans and things like that. And so, the experiences are just very different. And I think in this particular instance, I learned a great deal about how there's been these perpetual challenges for the Black community to really obtain wealth in this country, and that it is very much present today.
And you had alluded to the fact that you have made films, but you also run a nonprofit. And so part of not only your filmmaking, but all of the work that you do is about bringing communities together, making their communities stronger and the communities around us stronger because of that work. And that is central to the mission of Global Peace Film Festival,
Mm.
and why we're always so honored and privileged to be able to work with you and showcase your work. Could you talk a little bit about any plans you might have, whether it's through calls for action or any other kind of curriculum, how you plan to kind of use this film for greater impact?
Well, this is actually really an exciting time in that, so House Resolution 40 in Congress has been left in the Judiciary Committee for over 30 years. It has just been, there has just not been a willingness to move this bill to the full House floor. And just this past April, after over 30 years, the bill finally received enough votes and had enough co-sponsors to move it out of committee. So it really is a historic moment that we're in right now. And I think my call to action is there really is a legitimate opportunity to bring House Resolution 40 to the floor for a full vote by Congress. And this is the closest this particular bill has ever been to being heard on the floor. So I would urge anybody who's listening to this to contact their congressional representatives and urge them to bring HR 40 to the floor. And I need to say, and because I think there's a lot of misinformation about what HR 40 is. So in the 1980s, when the Japanese American redress movement was moving forward, one of the elements of that was there was the creation of a commission, the Commission on Wartime Relocation and Internment of Civilians. And that commission held public hearings all across the country. And that was really the first time that the stories of what really happened during the World War II came out in the public. Many people had never spoken about it ever. And that was really the first time that it came out publicly. And it was incredibly healing for our community. And I could just share really quickly that my father attended one of those hearings, and he was somewhat ambivalent about attending. He wasn't sure, he would do it, but he eventually wandered over to one of them and sat down, and he spent almost the entire hearing crying, tears flowing down his eyes, because it had released so much of the trauma that he had experienced during that time. And I think HR 40 does not appropriate reparations. And I want to say that very clearly. It does not set aside appropriations. All it does is it creates this commission, right? And an opportunity to talk about the systemic racism in this country and how it's affected the Black community and what are potential opportunities to address it. That is all HR 40 is really proposing to do, is to have a conversation about healing these wounds that have been left for centuries in this country. So I really want to emphasize that I personally feel like it could be such a healing process for this country, not just the Black community, but this entire country. And so I would urge people to reach out to their Congress people, urge them to bring HR 40 to the floor, and to do what they can, as I have, to educate people in their immediate communities about this issue, about what this is really about. There's so much misinformation. A lot of the opponents of HR 40 are making it solely about reparations and about the fact that, well, they weren't alive when there was slavery in America. And that is so far from the point of this whole bill. That is not the issue at all, because when you start to unpack what this is really about, there's been so many subsequent efforts to maintain a racial hierarchy in this country that's really what I'm hopeful that this can eventually come out of this process.
That's such an important thing and such a concrete thing that people watching this can actually do, and not a difficult thing to do. So
Mhm.
I hope everybody watching this will take that action, contact uh, their elected representatives, and tell them to push HR 40 to the floor, to a full floor
Mhm.
vote. So tell us a little bit about your own work and also what's next for you.
So what's next for me is I've been really fortunate to work with a public education campaign called Stop Repeating History. They funded Reparations, and they have actually funded a series of films that I'll be working on over the next year. I'm currently in production on a film about the model minority myth. Um, that's been targeted towards the Asian community and how it's really been harmful in creating divisions between communities of color, that it's prevented our communities from working actively with other communities. And that as Asian Americans, we have to reckon with that myth and the degree to which we have perpetuated it ourselves. And so that's something that I'm working on right now, that I hope will be done soon, actually in the next couple months, because we're hoping to release that by November of this year. And again, it's these particular series of films are really just about promoting dialogue, having discussions with different parts of both the Asian American community as well as other communities, to really unpack the ways that systemic racism have affected our communities and very concrete, proactive ways that we can help address them.
Fantastic, John. We will definitely steer people towards that project by providing right now
Mm.
the website, which is stoprepeatinghistory.org/reparations. And please do follow that website's progress and all of John's work. And again, for more information about how to see reparations as part of the 2021 Global Peace Film Festival, please be sure to go to peacefilmfest.org. Consider following us on social media. And again, thank you for listening to this interview, and we'll see you at the next Glow.